All right, everybody, welcome back to Armies on Parade.
I'm Matt. I've been visited by Grandpappy Nurgle. I'm sick.
I'm Marcus, and I'm visiting Uncle Nurgle to learn his secrets.
Yeah, today we're doing the Death Korps of Krieg range review. First impressions on Death Korps of Krieg, guys?
They're very War One-ish, as a lot of the Guard is, but the kind of style combat, I really like when you're introducing these just kind of outdated ways of fighting into the far future. I think that's a lot what 40k is, and I think they're a great representation of that.
I'd say they're definitely some of the most 40k grimdark, like all the Guard variants. These guys are the super, they don't care at all about dying for the Emperor. That's their total fantasy. There's like, oh yeah, it's going to be sweet. I know they do get represented a lot in other works. I'd say outside Acadians, probably these guys are like the second biggest known of the Guard regiments.
The fact that they're the second most popular or most known Guard regiment is to do with the fact that they look incredible. You can kind of see in this artwork here a little bit of what we're talking about. The gas masks, the World War I aesthetic that you guys had talked about. These are German infantry based from the First World War, and a lot of that ties into not just the way the faction looks, but also the way the faction functions in terms of the lore. They have perhaps the lowest value of a human life of any of the Guard regiments. Oftentimes their detachments are called the Call to Sacrifice because they're completely and totally devoted to the idea of dying for the Emperor and will willingly go to their deaths, which is very, very grimdark. And the First World War in general, I think, works within the setting of 40k because of how brutal that conflict was and how pointless that conflict was and how grim dark that conflict was. To get into the actual range review here, this first model we're going to look at is Lord Marshal Varnon Dreer.
Beautiful model. Not a big fan of the chicken feet, but
You're a big base guy. I mean, this base to me is amazing.
oh yeah, that is. You got barbed wire, skulls, not just tactical rocks, but just so much else. And then you just look at the model. The guy has robot legs, not super pronounced, beautiful cape, well adorned, but not overly adorned. Just chef's kiss.
Is this a robot leg here?
Yeah, look.
Huh, that is a neat detail if that's the case.
It makes sense. He's a long-lived Death Korps Krieg. He's not.
Yeah, he's lost limbs for sure. It's cool that it does like a little bit of a thematic flip where instead of dead enemies on the bases, these are dead human skulls. These are Kriegmen that were thrown needlessly into the crucible of combat and rotted away in place.
Fire crucible by which all true heroes are forged.
Yeah, all true. Skeletons are buried in mud.
I think he fits much better in terms of aesthetic than Lord Solar does for the standard Guard. And I think the little gas mask on the horses is really funny. Because that's the thing. There was a horse gas mask in World War One. I mean, yeah, like you don't want your horses to get gassed. But I also think it's funny looking. I don't think I'd say I dislike the chicken feet. I think I don't entirely dislike horses in the Guard. If it makes sense. It makes sense for the Kriegers because they have that World War I aesthetic. It fits them. So I think it works. And the fact that it's like an alien horse just kind of adds to the sci-fi element of it. It isn't just a horse.
If you think about horses on the battlefield, one of the biggest downsides to using a horse is that like a hoofed creature like a horse, while the hooves provide its feet protection against things like glass splinters and barbed wire and stuff like that, they aren't great for traction, where these chicken feet are probably a lot more agile. And so I like the idea that this sci-fi element is incorporated into the model to kind of add that level of, well, yeah, they're horses, but at the same time, this is like a beast that's forged for war alongside their riders. So in a world where genetic manipulation has advanced to this point where you can give a horse chicken feet, I am totally on board with the fact that you do give a horse chicken feet, because I think it does add a certain level of utilitarianism to the actual creature that you're... Like, this creature was created not to roam the fields of the Krieg homeworld and be a fun pet for a child. This creature was created because its legs needed to be able to traverse multiple different terrain types as the Krieg advanced.
You're right, John. I think these guys are all like my hero, Scott Skyner.
Badass.
What are you talking about?
The numbers don't lie, John.
All right, well, I have no idea what you're referencing.
The average demon got a 50-50 shot of beating the Imperium of Man. But Lord Marshal Varnon Dreer, he's a genetic freak, and he's built different. So he's got a 75% shot. But then you add in the Eldar. And the Eldar know they can't beat the Kriegers, so they're not even going to try. So it actually goes down to a 33% chance, which means that he then goes up to a 66.5% chance. And then you take that 66 and you add it to a 75% chance, and he's got a 135 and 2/3% chance of winning at the next Black Crusade. The numbers don't lie.
I hope that someone out there understands what the hell you're talking about, because I certainly don't know anything about that rant.
Yeah, he was a wrestler.
Okay, all right. Was he like purpose built for combat or something, or?
Nickname's the genetic freak.
He took a lot of steroids.
Okay. So for those not in the know, it's a wrestling meme, and it's about a wrestler who is called the Genetic Freak. And if you knew that reference, get in the comments.
Is he gun or sword, or does he have both?
Yes, but there's actually, even though there's not multiple variants, he does have a lot of build options.
This is his left hand. It has the sword out. This is his left hand. It has the gun out. But in this hand, he's holding the scabbarded sword. So I assume you can build him with both options. All right, let's keep moving here. The next kit we're going to look at here is the Krieg Command Squad.
It's a command squad, but they've got the Krieg aesthetic. These guys, I think, are a bit of a step up. Like, you have the guy on the right that has the skull added to the gas mask. Great flag. They've all got kind of a different flair to them. One of the things that's a bit difficult with Krieg, the aesthetic is, how do you make a bunch of guys with gas masks still kind of look unique and like people? And they, like, each of these guys feels like an individual. They do a really good job with it.
Most command squads are 5 people. We got the 6th person, which is the commissar, who's the actual leader of the squad. It's not the guy with the chainsword. So adds a little lore stuff to that. You got your cool fly guy. You got your medic in there somewhere with a bunch of vials. But that commissar is beautiful looking.
Yeah, I like a lot of little elements here too, where this vial, it's not a futuristic vial set. It was like a World War One era blood set. It's clearly made of wood or something. It's an old-fashioned slat vial storage container. The little details like that, I think, are what you were referencing, Matt, where you talk about the individuality of these models and the little flair that they add to each model. Their bases have a lot of extra gubbins. If it's skulls, if it's this barbed wire and entrenchment detail, same thing here, skull here. You know, I think that really helps to add to this and make it stand out a little bit more than a normal command squad might.
We're going to see a lot of barbed wire here, and it is such an excellent addition to these model spaces. Barbed wire is something that the Krieg probably are going to have done better for them than any other model line in 40k. There's a term that most 40k models, it's bases and faces. You do the face really well, you do the base really well, it's going to stand out, it's going to look really good on the tabletop. And then the other thing I want to talk about is just the Krieg color scheme. What's the exact color of it, John?
I'm not sure what the darker blue is actually, but the lighter blue is Thunderhawk blue.
Yeah, Thunderhawk blue is beautiful color.
Next kit here is the Krieg Infantry Squad.
This is the kill team, correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, still just a great kit. It was a great kit when it came out. So you got a lot of build options because it's a kill team box.
These guys are really cool. Like, they're Kriegers. They have a very good color scheme. Part of what makes, I think, the color scheme work very well is the fact that it's, I don't know if realistic exactly the right word, because, I mean, it isn't necessarily like camo, but it's got a good aesthetic to it.
This kit has a lot of character. Like all the kill team sets, they really nailed this set in particular, but the one downside is that it does come with a lot of gubbins, a lot of items that you need to paint, and you probably need to paint well, and so painting up 60 of these might be a challenge if you want to go with a full Krieg army. This next kit we're looking at here is the Combat Engineers.
Now that is a tactical Roomba if I've ever seen one. What is that guy holding? Is that a pump action
This here?
revolver shotgun?
Yes.
That's
Hey,
awesome.
that is super cool. I really like that.
In the game, they're supposed to be the strength of like a bolter. You gotta think of what a bolter is and what that would be in a human hand to be equivalent to it.
That's awesome.
It's a trench sweeper, right? It's a freaking revolver trench sweeper. It's it harkens back to that World War One aesthetic of the U.S. used shotguns and the Germans notoriously petitioned the Geneva Convention to ban shotguns in warfare, and everyone just sort of rolled their eyes because they'd been using gas for 2 years at that point. This kit is awesome. Back to your comment about bases and faces, Marcus. If you paint these guys up in a grimdark scheme, and the only light part of the model is this skull motif on their masks, They're going to be super identifiable on the table.
Oh, 100%. It does come in, like, I believe, a 5-man squad in the box, which I don't appreciate. You get 5 guardsmen for whatever absurd amount of money they cost.
6250 or whatever it is, yeah.
But that Roomba is doing a lot of work. That dude with the controller and like a drill tread robot bomb thing is super funny.
These models are sick. I think this is the way to do elite infantry. Your point of you get 5 per box for a full price box is kind of BS, but at the same time, I think that's the world we live in where we're paying extra for elite infantry, and hey, these guys at least look really cool, and I would happily buy into this kit if I was trying to get into a Krieg army.
And they come with a lot of options. Like, I bet the kit has a lot of plastic, which is in reality what you want.
I wonder if they can all be built with trench sweepers.
Yes, they can.
See, that's sweet.
And that's what you need to do. Options are kind of what can make these kits really valuable. Because then you could probably make more of these guys with the extra bits. Who knows?
Yeah. This next set, possibly the most divisive in the range, is the Death Riders.
My God, do I love horses. I've explained my issues with the feet, but man, those things look like they are moving in motion. You got different poses for cavalry. That guy in the top right with that spear, looking like he's about to, man.
Yeah, that's the one that I was immediately drawn to. Oh my god.
That's one of the most beautiful cavalry models.
Yeah, these guys are sick. These are some of the coolest cavalry I think I've seen in everything we've looked at so far, at least.
And then the horses don't look well fed. Clearly are skinny and starved. Very, very grimdark.
They're beasts of war. They're just as expendable as their riders. This horse came from the Krieg world and was in a lightless kennel all the way from the Krieg world. It didn't go into hypersleep. It was just a tool of warfare. There's no concern whatsoever for the humanity here. It's entirely utilitarian. And the detail on these horses is incredible. Look at the veins.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the veins, we talked about the rib cage visible underneath the skin. It's great from the perspective of this is really an amazing job from the artist, whoever sculpted this. But in addition to that, you don't have to do a lot of work to make this horse flesh look really good, because veins like this, they take washes really well, and like pits like this in the skin and these ribs, they take washes really well. So you could just do a base coat, maybe do a blend transition into these chicken feet, and then just do a flesh tone wash, and you have a pretty decent looking model. Cavalry are notorious for being a lot of work to paint up. That's reflected in the fact that if you try and get them commissioned, they're just so expensive. It's basically cost prohibitive. So whenever you look at a horse like this, there's a lot of gubbins on here that you will have to paint, and you will have to suffer through painting like 30 of these if you really want to fill out an army with them. But the fact that just the flesh, you could do an airbrush of these two colors and then wash really helps to make it a lot less painful, which is good. That's what you want. You want a model that looks incredible like these guys do. You talk about this guy, I mean, he is truly an amazing model. This is such a dynamic pose. You could see I don't know what would be this low on the ground, maybe a prone work or something, but you could see...
chaos rattling.
Chaos rattling, yeah. So he's about to plunge his spear straight through the skull of a chaos rattling. These are pieces of art. Whenever you look at models and kits that they refresh, the original Krieg Death Riders, almost all of them were standing models on circular bases, and they looked good, don't get me wrong, but these just turned it up to 11.
I love a lot of the new models, but this is definitely the best that's come out in a long time. Especially with this guard release, I would say these are the winner.
Next kit here we're going to look at is the Krieg Heavy Weapons Squad.
These guys are really cool to compare with the Cadian Heavy Weapon Squad, because they're functionally doing a very similar role, but you kind of see the different aesthetic. Cadians are going to have more of the, I guess you would call it American, if these guys are going to be more of the German feel to them. These are one of those, regardless if they're good or not, you got to have stuff like this in the line, you know, for your boys. You got to have the, you know, the big guns backing them up. They're a really cool job of it.
If you're familiar with the Forge World line, their heavy weapon teams are pretty iconic, where they just had different guns, you know, not just heavy bolters, they had heavy stubbers, giant toad flamethrowers, and I'm really glad they kept the aesthetic of them and didn't just kind of do copy and paste, because I think they look really, really cool. Kind of have those armored shields that kind of don't work. They're very World War I-ish, kind of get more fire drawn to you, but I do like the look of the stubber a good amount, but that flamers are always some of the coolest looking.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm not necessarily as high on with this squad is when we talked about the Cadian heavy weapon teams, they each had a team member with them. And I'm not sure if that's something that maybe historically these guns just needed one person, but I doubt it, right? Like,
Yeah, it'd be cool if they had a loader, especially like the guys on top. That reminds me of like a Japanese type of gun. I don't know.
yeah, no, I
I think
can
those are
definitely see
cool.
that. But someone to swap out these mags, somebody to swap out barrels. I know this guy's on the radio receiving instructions, but I think it would have helped if they had another member on the base here. Maybe it's an ablative wound they didn't want on these models or something like that.
I still believe they're 2 wounds.
They didn't even lose a wound, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, so there's no real excuse for that, other than just maybe they thought this was a crowded enough model base that they didn't want to add another guy, which I get. Overall, though, this kit is amazing. Moving on to the heavy artillery here. We broke it up into 2 sections. We have the heavy mortar and quad launcher to start off.
Man, do I hate artillery, but I cannot deny how just big, chunky, and cool these weapons are.
Mm-hmm.
These things have huge bases. Like, it's just so much stuff going on. These guns feel lived in, which is a weird thing to say, but in reality, they're living in their guns, probably.
Yeah, it's telling a story. I love that quad launcher. That one's awesome. Same thing with the heavy weapons team. This is one of those. Sometimes you don't want to worry about what's necessarily good. Sometimes you just want what's going to be awesome. You just want to have the big guns behind your Kriegers. It's just cool to have. It's like the Death Strike missiles. They're never going to be good, but they're awesome.
Oh no, that's the problem. These guys are very good.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the detail on this base. This is like a map here. You've got this guy who's providing supportive fire or defending the gun. There's steps leading up here from the back, ammo cases, a wrench to repair the gun or remove pieces of the gun for maintenance and repair. Everything about this base is extremely, extremely thought out, and someone really put a lot of thought and detail into not only the individual models on the base, but this gun's actual function. And that really translates to a amazing model. It's like whoever sculpted this model was thinking, all right, let's make ourselves a Krieg artillery diorama. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, there's a freaking entrenching shovel here. They knew about the memes, and they really just steered into it with some little references here and there while maintaining the coolness of the overall model. And it looks like for this kit, you have a bunch of different options. This guy's a spotter. This guy's providing suppressing fire. This dude is doing whatever he's doing against this panel. The actual individual models themselves on the base are themselves really good models. Before you even get to the gun, these guys are amazing. And then the gun themselves are huge F-off guns. These are the other options that you can build the kit as. This is the multi-rocket launcher on the left, and then on the right is the biggest F-off cannon of them all, the siege cannon.
Smash.
I love that siege cannon so much that you could make them look differently. You could barbed wire these things out, but like out of the box, these are 10 out of 10 models.
I'm digging that rocket launcher. I think you could even customize it, try to have custom smoke, have some of the missiles like firing out of it. That thing's awesome.
I'm not as much in love with it. It's mostly to the rockets. It makes a lot of sense. You're not going to have 280 millimeter shells. You're going to have a bunch of look like almost gas canisters, which is super cool. I love good old classic artillery. And I will add that I was told people that those guns switch out value purposes. You can pretty easily magnetize them. You get 3, you're going to have pretty much all of them, which is nice.
That is nice. It's a minor complaint with this, but the historical examples that use this are like the Nebelwerfer and like the German rocket launchers from World War II.
Yeah, like the Calliope.
Yeah, and those were front-loaded, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
It might have been backloaded.
They definitely weren't sticking out naked, at least for the American ones.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were more mortars or what, but I guess this guy's loading from behind. Maybe that works. Can't really see the back of this, so it's tough to see if there's like tubes that he can... It doesn't look like it from here, but maybe there's tubes that he can load them into. That's just something that I noticed, but the cool thing about this, a plus side of this, is when we talk about paint your missile tips, painting these yellow, it's really going to be a standout feature. You're going to see that across the battlefield, and it's really going to add contrast to this overall model. I think you run the danger with Krieg of having just a blob of drab. Paint the mud, you paint the sandbags brown. This is a giant blob of blue and black. If you don't have the skills that the heavy metal team has, you might run the risk of running into a model that looks very monochromatic, and that might be a problem. Having details like this that you can really paint up and provide contrast, I think would help that for sure.
Things like the red, the decals.
Yeah. Yep.
Over there. The battery number, like we saw with the heavy weapons teams. Stuff like that can all help.
Yep.
Man, well, these things look great with some of those 3D printed or those shell effects. A big old puff of smoke. You see a shell coming from that barrel. they're gonna look really cool. Like you said, that multiple arc launcher, especially.
Yeah, they used to sell a booster of like Krieg artillerymen for the Earthshaker cannons. I'm sure you could really spice these up and turn them up. I mean, they're already amazing. I would just build what you were talking about, where you magnetize them out, Marcus. To me, that's you buy one kit of these. I don't know if it's 2 per kit or 3 per kit or whatever it is, but
Oh, it's 1 per kit. These things are huge.
1 per kit. Yeah, so you buy 3 and you have 12.
Well,
So that's really good value, but also congratulations on your awesome model, because these things are freaking awesome.
this is the one thing. As much as I don't want Artie, man, do I want this model.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to make an exception for this. It's like the airplanes that I find really cool. Like, I don't really care if they're good in the game. I want them to be bad in the game. I just want to bring them.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Cut the video. Cut it.
Are you
Channel's
how
over.
Are you how daring
Channel's
me?
over.
Are you how daring me because I insulted planes or because I insulted artillery?
Dare insult planes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't want.
Yeah,
No, Matt, I don't want. Let me be clear to our audience and to you. I like planes a lot. I think they're very cool. I don't want them to be good in the game.
They should be broken. You should be required to take them every game.
If your army doesn't have them, you shouldn't be playing it.
Yeah.
Bring back 9 Eldar flyers.
Hashtag free the hemlock.
Okay. That's an extremely spicy take. So I think we'll just move on. All right, guys. Closing thoughts on Death Korps of Krieg.
Their popularity's deserved. These guys are amazing. They did a great job, I think, with the refresh.
They hit the aspects of the Krieg that they need to hit.
I hope they continue to refresh this range. They added a lot of the iconic models, the engineers, the infantry, the Death Riders, the command squad. All those things are classic Krieg, obviously, but there's stuff that they're still missing. They're missing a lot of the open-topped Chimera is sort of unique to Krieg. They have Grenadiers, which really play into that Stormtrooper element from the First World War. Maybe they already covered that with the Combat Engineers, so they're not going to add another type of elite infantry to the faction. But I think it's really good that they've steered into the detachments in 10th edition, which gives them the freedom to really add little mini factions within army books. And Krieg is a perfect example of that, where it's like, it's very unique. It's unique enough that it probably could be its own faction, but how much do they want to actually develop that? Probably depends on sales more than anything else. But I think they did a really good job, like you guys were saying, with the range refresh, and I hope they continue.
And that means it's up to you, everyone. Buy. Buy the models. Buy.
Bye.
Spend.
Hit the wheel. Hit the wheel.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, disregard any other financial advice in your life and go take a second mortgage out on your house and buy a full Krieg army. All right, well, thank you for watching Armies on Parade. This has been a range review for the Death Korps of Krieg. Remember to like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and we'll catch you on our next video, which will be the Catachans. Thanks for watching.